suggestion of some work and the thinking around the global coaching framework. Now, these aren't a mandate. These aren't telling you absolutely what has to be done. It's a benchmark, it's a guide, it's a reference point, it's a source, it's a tool. And the thinking that has come from here, or the thinking that is in here, has come from all of the work and all of the learning that some of the leading nations have had over the years. So the proposal and the suggestion around the 4 coaching roles is exactly that. Now, some of the sports that we've worked with in this context have had no need, certainly in their initial thinking, to advance beyond having a coach, because the sport was small, there were little numbers of players or participants, and there just wasn't the need to venture that far. But again, and please do think here, is that every sport is unique, and typically every country is unique. So there's a lot of uniqueness going around. And what you'll find is that the solutions that are developed by individual sports, individual nations, are exactly that. They are solutions that wouldn't necessarily fit for anybody else. Something that we sort of wanted to share with you before we move on is that, and recognising there are 4 levels here, is to consider that the document talks about 2 strands: performance coaching, participation coaching. And what I want you to start to consider here is that it doesn't equate. I'm so sorry. This doesn't help you at all. Oh, I know. So it doesn't equate. So what? No, go ahead. Oh, I'll take all the help I can get. The danger is, when you look at this slide, you superimpose the previous slide on top, and you go beginner, coach, senior coach, master coach. What I want to put in your heads now, pardon that sodding flip chart, is what I want to put in your heads now is that the coaching roles that we're talking about, beginner to master, sit within each domain, or should sit within each domain. So in a thriving sport, with lots of participants and lots of coaches, and we start to think about a coach development pathway, we should be building in the facility for coaches to aspire from beginner to master coach in this context. Because really, think about this. Children in their most formative stages of development, do you want to buddy them with a beginner coach who doesn't necessarily have some of this that we've been talking about? I want my very best coaches working with my beginners in those real formative stages.
But also comes down to an issue of scale too. I mean, you've only got so many best coaches. Couldn't you consider the concept of beginner coaches that are properly educated by quality coaches?
Well, and that's exactly right. And that's the point of the global coaching framework, is to look at how can we make more coaches that can operate at their best. So we want more best coaches, if you like. I know that's not proper English, but I think it works in terms of the language we've got. And again, we might not be able to aspire to master coach immediately. It may be a longer term journey. So we have to recognise where we're at and what the current demands of the sport are. So some of the intent around we want the world, we may just have to pare down to what is realistic in these first 12 months or first 18 months. The question that Barbara asked earlier around, are you working with children, are you working with adults, are you working in participation and in terms of performance? That was the link. We were just sort of trying to get a sense of where you were spending most of your time. Is there anything more?
I've been spent from the foundation to the seniors.
In terms of your journey?
Again?
In terms of yourself, so you've come up through the ranks from
You currently coach all the way across still?
Yes.
Still coach, so a lot of that came out, a lot of people moved into the circle.
Until I reach the management.
Until you reach management, then you get someone else to do it, see? But yeah, and that's where a lot of you are, I think, is you're not coaching in one or another, you're actually coaching across quite a lot of environments.
Until one of my swimmers take over now. He's the national coach.
And this is why this framework will, when you start looking at it, think, oh, we haven't got all this, well, you won't have yet in some places, but what have we got? And what's the next step then? And where are we going to find our best coaches in each of those environments? Some of whom might be the same person, and actually it's not possible for them to split themselves 17 times. I imagine that's what you'd like to do for yourself sometimes. If I could only get more of me over there and over there and over there, we could make something really good happen here. It can't happen with just you. And again, in the context of your projects, that's what a lot of you will have to be thinking about. Does my project stand or fall on, if I'm there to make it happen, it's great, but if I'm not there, there's nobody else to keep it going. So how do we keep it sustainable? So that's where we're coming from, not just us, but this whole global coaching framework is exactly that. To say it's not just about what happens in the UK must happen everywhere, or what happens in Australia that's working must happen everywhere. It's about saying, can we put an overview on across the globe, really, to say these are intrinsically good things to be headed for, and where do we sit at the moment? And what's our next step in a year's time? What about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years' time for our sports and our country in terms of developing a coaching infrastructure? And I guess the shift that we're asking you to make, and for those of you who are going to focus around coach education, is at the moment, quite rightly, your heads, you wear a coach's hat a lot of the time, whether you're coaching children or adults or beginners or high quality, high performance athletes, you're wearing a coach's hat. Once we start thinking about how to develop coaches, we take another step back. And we're saying, okay, rather than me being the coach, I'm now looking at how do I help other people to be a good coach. And that's actually that's a mental shift for all of us who are quite used to being the coach for most of the time. How do I stand back enough to help other people get to be even better as coaches?
I think that we have to take into consideration to who is in charge of doing this coaching in our country.
Correct.
Like we must identify if we work for a national federation,
Yeah.
what is our competence. If the government, through the Minister of Education or through the Minister of Sport, they have another coaching system.
Yeah.
Probably there is private schools that are doing coaching education in sports. So probably we have to think about all of this. And it can become complex,
yeah.
But first of all, what we want to do in our federations, right?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and we're beginning to and this is good, because this is where we're wanting to head, that we're beginning to just come up to be an even bigger picture, to be saying, right, my project over 6 months I want to do lots of things, but it's here. Actually, where does my project here fit in my sport, in my country, in the world, in the international federation of this sport? It looks like a tiny little thing here, but it's got to link and connect to things that are happening already. Because there's lots of things happening out there that you need to know about to make the impact of your project even bigger than it might be, because you're linking it to initiatives that are already working. But you're absolutely right, Felipe. You have to understand where your place is in that context, and you become fundamentally important people in your own environments to help spread the word that says, hang on a minute, Federation, we need to have a look at what else is going on. We need to look at the fact that we've got 3 separate bodies here all fighting each other, and we need to be on the same page. How are we going to make that happen? So what starts out from you doing your project and we've seen it with people over the last 4 years who come on here and already now are they're members of their NOC. They've given up their jobs in whatever they had, real proper jobs, not even as coaches. They have real proper jobs in the real world. And as a result of the projects they've done here, it's true, Joseph, isn't it? They've moved on into other environments within their sporting world that has helped make some of these things happen. And the good news is that we're going to share again with you, and you take away, is that some of that thinking is already being done that you can tap into and link into when and where it works for you.
Just a final thought here, again, around the sort of the levelness around the domains, is remember that there is the opportunity for coaches as well as the athletes to make the transition across the different stages. So in terms of, I mean, again, this is sort of a fairly crude player development model, but what we also need to think about is that, does that look better?
Yeah.
Sarah looks much better.
Better
in the
to
dark.
see.
Sorry.
Sorry. So much like we're building pathways for athletes to move through, there's some thinking that we need to almost mirror that when we start to think about the coach development pathway. Because whilst players have goals, coaches have goals. Coaches don't want to be pigeonholed necessarily in just that I'm a children's coach and that's where I'm going to stay forever. They want to migrate. And really evolved sports and really evolved thinking supports that migration. But again, I think the key learning here is that if we can put into our heads participation coaching, performance coaching, and the 4 levels within each context or each domain, we're doing well. Excellent coaching, Barbara.
Yes, Sarah.
Do you need lights or do you look better in the
I
dark?
always look better in the dark, but we go for lights. Okay, this is going to be, I'm better in the light there. Right,
Do you work the light?
so just behind you. One of those, there you go, the next one. Hey! Where's that one?
No, go back one, go back, go back.
Right, sorry. Right, okay, so having said that, you guys, I'm assuming in here, are excellent coaches. Everybody an excellent coach in here?
Yes.
I bet you are. I bet you, well, you wouldn't be here, to be honest, if you weren't. So if you weren't really already doing a good job at coaching in your own countries, you wouldn't be on this programme. So I'm going to say, look, big pat on the back for everybody. In here, we're brilliant. Okay, we can say that. That's okay. So we're pretty good. So, this is going to be a quick fire round. We want to fill these 2 flip charts at the front. Excellent coaching. What does it look like, sound like, feel like? If you see an excellent coach working, what do you see them doing? What do you hear them saying? What does it feel like for you as on the receiving end or for the athletes? Any ideas at all? Anything at all? Yeah.
Involvement,
Involvement?
Involving who or what?
both parties.
So the coach and the athletes.
Interaction.
Some interaction. Okay, another one? Yep.
Teaching and learning skills
Teaching and learning skills again from the coach.
from the coach.
Okay, so some teaching skills. Okay, we might unpick those in a minute. Oh, we've got some lots of hands here. Yep. Available. Sorry. Available. Availability. So of the coach being available to their athletes. And do you mean like in a session? You mean? So they're equal time, or it's not just spending time with 1 or 2. Is that what you mean?
I mean, be available to every athlete.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to go over this side, Martin.
Interesting and funny.
Interesting and funny. The coaches. Have we hit that yet? I'm saying nearly. Okay, hang on. Interesting and funny. So fun for the participants, and it's interesting. Yeah, I'm going here. Motivated. Who the athletes are motivated. The coach is motivating them. Okay, the coach is being motivating. Yeah. So there's some technical. So you're in a excellent coach. Whatever they're doing, you feel they're technically competent. They've got the knowledge.
Leadership.
Yeah. I'm coming to Eric. I'm not ignoring Australia. I'm coming back.
We're good.
Approachable. Okay, so the coach is approachable. All right.
Observation.
Right. So go on.
The coach needs to be always paying attention to his athletes, his job,
Okay.
making sure that what's being done is appropriate.
Right, so they're observing their athletes, so we'll notice them doing that. So there's some observation going on there. I'm going to come into here, yeah.
Giving observation and giving feedback, getting feedback.
Okay, so they're observing, working out what's going on, and then there's some feedback going on
Communication.
between. Okay, communication. Yes, when we say communication, what does that mean?
I'm saying
Very important.
communication with feedback. Feedback, that's how you communicate.
Okay, it's one part of communication. I'm going to come back to that. Yep.
Leadership.
Leadership from the coach. All right. Okay. Oh, I'm putting here first, then too. Sorry. Passion, be some passion, okay?
The duty, in a way, all the duties that as a coach, his duty on all the sides.
So everything that the coach needs to do is all organised. So all the things. So give me some examples of those kinds of things. All of his duties. What are all of the duties? Organising,
timing,
planning.
all these things.
So all of you'd be aware that all of that has gone on. Yes. Okay. I'm coming. There was a hand here.
Improvement.
So we're seeing that. So in a good session, we're seeing the athletes improving. Okay. I'm coming here.
Experience.
So go on.
Coach should have experience.
Okay, so if we were watching the session, how would we know that that's the case?
He would correct mistakes and.
Okay, so that might come back to that technical, potentially. All right, okay, yeah.
Understand. Coach must understand.
Understand all the different athletes, understand the people. So it's easy, this coaching bit, isn't it?
Planning.
Planning, okay, planning. Yeah. Okay, any more? Yeah.
He's demonstrating.
Demonstrating, so at times you might see a coach demonstrating in different ways, could be physically, could be with a video, but demonstrating. I'm coming there, yeah. Advisor, in what sense? Advisor, counsellor, someone said, okay. So we've got that relationship with their athletes.
I don't know if you should see this.
Hang on.
I don't know if you see this. I'm not trying to split this with these, where the coach's ego is subordinate to that of the athlete.
Okay,
I
so
don't know how you put that.
I think we might say, so what I just said is that the coach's ego would be subordinate to that of the athlete. So humble or being completely player-centred.
Yeah.
So the focus of the session is about what's right for them rather than aren't I brilliant.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, because we've acknowledged that we are already, so that's okay. Was that a hand? Yeah.
Coach to be a role model.
Oh, be a role model. Yeah. Tough ass sometimes, but yes.
So
Oh, I don't want any of my students to take after me.
So, okay. We might not, it might be hard to see in the session, but we're aware that a coach is keen to develop themselves still, so they're always learning. They don't think, actually, that's it, I've mastered it, done, and then I stop. Yes. So there's a cooperative approach, so a two-way approach. Okay, that's come out a bit already, hasn't it? It's not just about me telling you what to do, even though you'd obviously agree with me, wouldn't you? Yeah, see.
Collecting and recording data.
Sorry?
Collecting and recording data.
Oh, recording data, collecting and recording data, yeah. IT. Bless you, Joseph. Using IT, yeah.
Educator.
Sorry.
Educator.
An educator, so that could, yeah, I think we've got the teaching, yeah. Ethical, yes, we need to be ethical. Code of conduct. Say that again.
They must be willing to listen.
Say it again.
They must be willing to listen.
Willing to listen. Super. So they're going to have fantastic listening skills. So just as we begin to unpick communication a little bit, listening.
Assertive.
Sorry.
Assertive.
Sometimes need to be assertive. Just come back to this communication. So we all say coaches need to be good communicators. So I've got one here saying listening is really important. We talked about feedback a little bit. What else?
Vigilance you can use like sight, listening and...
Okay, so they might use a mix of learning styles. Honest, okay. Still coming back to the communication. If I'm going to listen, what else might I need to do to get this involvement with my athletes? I will need to be understanding them. How do I get them to talk to me? I'd be approachable, like they can trust me. I might listen to them, but if I have to ask some questions, I can engage them by asking really good questions, and that helps build that relationship. But asking really good, powerful questions as coaches is hugely important if we're going to be excellent at any level. But the questioning, the listening, easy for us to say, not always easy for us to do, because there's quite a lot going on in our heads when we're coaching.
Be creative.
Creative. Oh, you want that as well as all that?
I think safety.
Tough, creative, yes, absolutely. Innovative, we want people who are safe practice, all of those things, and we want to... Sorry? You're full, okay. Okay. Lots of things we want in excellent coaches, be they experienced or even when they're starting out. We talk about a lot of these things we want people to be introduced to.
So, what's the difference between the two lists? Apart from one's black, one's green, one's there, one's here. What's the difference between the two?
And then those are characteristics.
Of the coach. So you think you're absolutely right. This is all about the coach.
About that,
This is about the athlete. And actually what we do, if I can spell, we call these the what to coach skills. This is what the athlete does. So if those are the what to coach, what are they? How to coach. Now, in terms of player development, player engagement, player performance, which of these two sets would you say is the most important?
They're both equal. How?
Yeah, because actually I think we heard Barbara say earlier, it doesn't matter how much technical expertise I have. It doesn't matter if I am the world's best player. If I cannot communicate and I cannot get my message across, how am I going to help my athletes learn?
Amen to that.
Amen to that. Hey. So, and actually, thinking like coach developers, as opposed to coaches, because you're now stood in a different pair of shoes, thinking as coach developers, we need to teach our coaches some of these how to coach skills. Because go back to your own experiences and your own training as a coach, who taught you how to give a highly effective demonstration? Who taught you how to demonstrate? Coach? What were you doing when they were coaching?
Watching.
Playing? So I have picked up on my own experiences as an athlete, but in terms of your learning, your development, your accreditations, I bet not many of you have been taught how to observe. Really observe. How many of you have ever been taught to deliver or to manage high quality feedback? It's just by osmosis, because historically, coach education and coach development always focused on, sorry about running across, always focused on this stuff. And there is a shift now, which says there is a focus here as well. So, what we want to do, recognising that a coach has sort of wider, we will come back to this, but recognising that a coach has slightly wider responsibilities. Who's got the clicker? Could you click it? I can. Thank you. Have a seat, take a rest. Because what we want to do is just think for a minute about, because we've talked about, now most of this stuff is modelled on the field, isn't it? We see this whilst they are coaching. The coach has other functions, and these have been identified in the Global Coaching Framework. And again, lovely assistant. And your independent clicks. There's 6. And these primary functions have been identified by the Global Coaching Framework Group. Again, they have debated these long and hard. We won't spend the same amount of time debating them, but what I want you to do in your groups is just start to think about, well, and one more click if you would like. It's just start to think about what is the detail that sits beneath these statements. So let me just, I'm just going to hand these out randomly. Grab some board markers. Yes. You look a bit depleted in this group. Where have they gone?
1, 2, 3, 4, and 1's outside.
Is it coming back?
Evaporated.
Was it something we said? Right.